last question we have of the 2-minute pre-prepared questions, Ms. Medine.
Okay, a generation ago, California ranked first in the nation in quality of education, and now it ranks near the bottom. What happened, and what should the Assembly do about it?
Mr. Becker.
Sure. Well, it's not rocket science to know what happened. What happened is we had a Supreme Court decision, Serrano versus Priest, and as we all know, that took the power and gave the funding, made all the funding go up to Sacramento, and then Sacramento, in its infinite wisdom, would redistribute that funding. We were going to have power equalization to equalize funding. Then what happened is several years after that, then we had Prop 13. So we gave all the money to Sacramento, and then we cut the money. And that's one of the main drivers that have led us to this state. And so that's why we know that funding is critical. We are a high wage state. We're a high cost of living state with lower than average per pupil spending. That's why we have the lowest ratio of counselors in the country, lowest ratio of librarians in the country, and among the lowest ratios of teachers per students in the country. And that's what we have to fix. And I think what we know is, to think that we're going to try, do the same thing and expect different results is the definition of, I guess, insanity. And so we need to try different things. And I think one thing we've learned, hopefully, over the last 30 years is that each school has to be a community school. We have to give communities, again, power of funding, and more power and more responsibility over the local schools so that we can tie schools closer to the community and get people a stake again. And so that's one of the things that we've worked on very closely. We have to lower the parcel tax threshold. We did that successfully with school bonds in Prop 39 from 66% to 55%. And we unleashed billions of dollars of bonds that got more than 55%, couldn't get 66%. That's among the changes we need to do to enable more local funding, but then have matching funds. So districts like East Palo Alto, if they want to do parcel tax, there'll be matching funds up at the state level to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Gordon.
The wording in the question is interesting, because the question says that the quality has declined. I can make a great argument for the funding decline, and I can talk about that at some length. But in terms of quality, our schools are actually performing very well, in spite of the severe financial problems that they face. In 2003, in the fourth grade tests, there was 39% proficient or better in English. 6 years later, it went up to 60%. Our schools are improving in this climate. Now, that means that local school boards, parents, and teachers are working harder than ever to achieve this good quality with very limited resources. And the thing that does need to be addressed in California is the resources. All started with Prop 13 and the transfer of power from local school boards and the transfer of taxes to the state of California. We have centralized too much decision-making in California. We've taken it out of the hands of local school boards. We need to return power and authority and responsibility to local school boards. Allow the state to set some standards as to where they would like to see local communities achieve to, but the local communities decide how to get there. And give them the tools to do that. Reduce the threshold to pass local taxes to a simple majority, and let local communities make decisions. I absolutely believe that the best educational decisions are made as close as possible to the child, and that can only be done by parents, teachers, and local school boards. We need to return power to them.
Thank you. Like many of you, I'm a product of the public schools in America. As I told you earlier, I was fortunate to have teachers stay after school to tutor me, to catch me up. And I had tremendous teachers along the way that I remember with great fondness and respect, and I'm sure all of you do as well. And like you, I want every child in California to have the same opportunities that I did, the same access to public education. So I think we all know the causes of what brought us here. So I want to focus on what we can do about it. So the most important is funding, as you heard. That as I said earlier, the 2/3 requirement, eliminating that is the single most important step we can do to unlock I think the pretty universal desire or the universal wish that we all have as parents for our children. I mean, I think actually if you ask all Republicans and Democrats, they will agree on that. But there is an ideological feeling by a minority that for a no new taxes, no matter what some of the consequences are. So funding is number one. And then in terms of educational strategy, I mentioned earlier teachers. And then there was a McKinsey study from a couple years ago that looked at all these factors, everything from local control to classroom size and every possible way. And the conclusion they came down to were the three most important factors were to recruit the most appropriate people to become teachers, to train them to become effective instructors, and to develop a system that supports them and is continuously improved. So that's the single most important thing that I believe we should focus on.